I'd like to give a huge thanks to the sponsors of today's video, Lord of the Rings, Heroes of Middle-earth, and Electronic Arts, EA. So, Lord of the Rings Heroes of Middle-earth is a brand new Hero Collector RPG, and if you know Hero Collectors, you know now is the time to get on board. In this video, I'm going to do a brief overview of the hub, which is where you'll find all the different modes and places in the game that you're going to need to familiarize yourself with, and I'm going to speak on my experience in the game, the characters I've used, where I've used them, and what they've helped me accomplish. We're also going to go through the new raid mode and what you can expect in the near future from the raid mode. Lots of exciting stuff in this game. I do suggest you give it a try. If you do, make sure you download using the link in the comment section below or the QR code up there. I would really appreciate it as let them know that I sent you and support the channel. Without further ado, let's get into it. Alright guys, so here we are at our Heroes of Middle-earth hub, and I think it's important to give a brief overview for new players who may not see everything here just yet on their account. Note that at level 30 you will unlock raids, and at that point your screen will look like this. By then you will have unlocked the supply store, you will have unlocked the arena store, you would have unlocked everything, and that happens very quickly. I remember after my first day of play, I was already level 14. So let's quickly break it down. So at the very top of the screen, we see our currencies. We got gold, premium gems, light and shadow campaign energy, as well as guild energy. Speaking of guilds, we got the guild tab. This is where you'll find your guild or see your current guild. In there, you're going to be able to play with your friends, talk to your friends, as well as put up a character that your friends can use in their guild campaign. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Next, we have the arena. In the arena, you want to have a really strong team, just one, so you can push through, get a good ranking, and then not get knocked back by other players. And that's going to help you get that premium currency, which you could use for character shards, gear, extra campaign energy, a lot of stuff. It's a very valuable resource. The Adventure tab is where you find your daily challenges. This is on a rotation, except Sunday, where we get all of them. These are big surges in resources, so the further you can push, as in tier-wise, you can get a lot more resources and it'll help grow your roster very fast. This is also where you're going to find the new character campaigns, the marquee events. This is a cool feature where they basically give you the character, they give you the team, and you get a little story as well as a free unlock of that character at the end at 3 stars, which is at a usable level. If we go on down to the supplies, we're going to be finding a bunch of different stores in there with different currencies to use in those stores. You're going to earn these currencies from different modes. There's an arena store where you earn currency from the arena mode. There's a guild store where we earn currency from the guild campaign. There's a raid store where we earn currency from the raid. You get the idea. That's very normal for hero collectors. Lots of different characters in there, lots of gear, lots of resources. So you want to make sure you're visiting that supply store quite often. Then we have the playbook. This is where you're going to find your light and shadow campaigns. Light campaigns, you can only use light characters. Shadow campaign, you can only use shadow characters. And then your guild campaign, where you can use anybody, including one additional character supplied by your guild mates, which I think is really cool. And this is the meat of the game. This is where you're going to find a very rich, unique story that Heroes of Middle-earth is only able to tell. Then we have our raid tab. We'll talk about raids in a little bit. No spoilers there. And one of the most important things to note is these two down here in the bottom right corner, the objectives and the quest tabs. The objectives reset daily. You want to complete those objectives. It's going to give you 5 Strider Shards, as well as a bunch of resources and raid keys so your guild can launch a raid. Then there's the quest tab, which in the early game, you're going to be completing quests left, right, and center, unlocking characters via that, getting a bunch of resources to really boost up your roster quickly. And finally, we have the inbox, which is where EA is going to keep you up to date on all changes in the game. The store, where you're going to be able to find bundles for new characters if you're a new player, as well as a free guild chest every 4 hours, where you're going to get 2 character shards, some resources, and some gear, which is going to help propel you further. And finally, the collections tab. This is kind of the hot spot I always visit when I open the game. This is going to be our roster. Let's go in here. I'm going to talk about my experience in the game thus far. So, the game is going to start you off with Strider and Frodo Baggins. Obviously, Strider is Aragorn, aka King of Gondor. I'm sure we're going to get that version of him somewhere in the near future. But you do get him off rip, and he is a very good character. He's also available in the daily achievements, which means you're going to farm him up super quick on the stars front anyway. And stars are a huge multiplier in this game, so it's really important to go for characters that you can get good stars on. Frodo Baggins, you also get him early. Now, we had a lot of doubts about the Hobbit team at first, but then someone in my guild used him in the current raid chapter. We'll talk about raids in a little bit. And super good. Yeah, him, Strider, and I believe it was the Great Goblin went in. And they were beating the Elven Rivendell team with the first legendary character, Elrond, who, again, we'll talk about in a little bit. So really exciting, and I guess we can't sleep on the hobbits anymore, even though that was kind of what people were recommending at first. So kind of interesting there. Uh, some people you won't know about is the Isengard orcs. Now you've seen them in the original trilogy, but you may not know them by name. So Ugluk is their leader of the Isengard team. He is the first shadow character you get off rip. He's an amazing tank and controller, and he is basically the sustain of the team. I've used the Isengard team. I've abused the Isengard team, really. I went all in on them. I had them all at max level. I had them all gear, level 8, a bunch of level 6 abilities on them. And doing so, I was able to beat all of the Shadow campaign, even the hard nodes. I was able to beat all the difficulties on the Orc challenges, the Shadow challenges, and I've even used them to get really far into the attack challenges as well. So the Isengard team is Ugluk, Azhak, Dunhar, Mahur, and Morza. Morza I've just recently built in, so I kind of subbed Morza out for a while, and instead I was working on Gaz Ironhide. So Gaz Ironhide is a special character. He's a large character. There's a couple of them. The Great Goblin is one, Bruhu the Brute is one, who's another troll, and then there's Gaz Ironhide. And I'm sure eventually we'll get other characters like Ents and stuff. Think about larger creatures in the Lord of the Rings universe. Maybe we'll even get griffins with Gandalf someday. Who knows what they're going to do? The opportunities are almost endless. So with Gaz Ironhide, the reason I really like him is because he's available in the guild campaign, which means we can farm him very quickly. If you're new to the game, you're going to quickly find out that the guild campaign is the best place to farm characters who are there, because there's no limit to the amount of times you can hit their node. The only limit is your energy. So you can get them up very quickly. And with that, he's just a huge damage dealer with a giant damage stat. He's slow, but on both of his attacks, he makes good use of his turn. Because on his special and his ultimate, they're both AoE attacks, and when he's stuck doing his basic, it hits really hard, especially if he's weakened. So he's a very easily to obtain character, and he fills in a big gap the Isengard team has, which is basically AoE damage, which was a huge downfall for me in the first chapter of raids. Luckily, I found a way around that. We'll talk about that when we get to raids. Another downside to Isengard, I guess, is Azhak is only attainable once we get to Light Chapter 4-9. Now, I've done this very easily on the live server. I already have Azhak at 5 stars. I farm him every day. And you could too, if you just lean into the characters they start you off with. So Lady Eowyn. She's going to be the first character after Strider and Frodo Baggins. They just give you. There's a chest you open. It's predetermined that she's in there. And thank God for that. I think she's one of the best plug-and-play characters in the game. It's her special right here. So she is one of the fastest characters in the game, and when you get her up to level 5 on her special, she's granting might to all squad members, which is really strong. So I like to pair her with some of the Rohan members you also get very early, namely Eothane and Eomer. Eomer you get from a quest. Eothane you get like a second after you get Lady Eowyn. So lots of synergy here. They're all Rohan. And Eomer, like Strider and like Gaz Ironhide, and like Ugluk, who's also guild campaign farm, by the way, is a super quick farm. So he is in the arena, which means you can basically get 5 shards every day. It costs very little to get his shards every time you see him. So I think I already have him at 6 stars on live. I'm soon to get him at 7. And he is an absolute beast with stars. So he brings in a summon. He gets assist on every turn. He's a phenomenal character. So it's really cool they give him to you right away. But my light team hasn't been able to go all the way. I haven't been able to beat all the chapters yet, probably because I haven't invested in them the same as I've invested into Isengard. Like, they're not max gear, they're not max level, they don't have as many level 6 abilities. But I'm actually finding that this might be a good time for me to swap, because they recently released, yeah, you guys know this guy, right? Legolas and Gimli, the two, the best synergy in the movie. Well, they also have amazing synergy in game. They have this really cool animation where Gimli's like charging forward, but Legolas kind of springboards off him and just lets loose an arrow. It does massive damage. I thought that was really cool. Really gives you kind of a nostalgia of when you were watching that movie. But you know, we're not going to slate all the dwarves. Fili and Kili from the Hobbit books. They come in and they do a nice song and dance like in that first movie, except this song and dance does this giant heal. It can almost bring your full team up like 50% life when they're built big enough, which is crazy in this game. Like, a big heal like that is super powerful. I'm actually working on these 4 right now on the live server, and I'm pairing them with the 5th character, who's the raid character. We'll talk about that in a second. But I shouldn't sleep on this guy either, Lord Elrond. He's the first legendary that they introduced to the game. You're going to need 5 elves at 5 stars to get him unlocked. But when you do, you're basically a god in Arena. Let me tell you, My Isengard team with Lady Eowyn does really good in Arena. I hold really well. I have a steady income of cores, but when I face off against Lord Elrond, it's a problem. You're going to want to get him unlocked as soon as you can. I'm excited for the next time he comes around because I'll be able to get him this time. It's going to be a lot of fun, and they're amazing in raids too. Speaking of raids, let's go talk about that. So Heroes of Middle-earth takes a really interesting take on raids. It's nothing I've experienced before, but it's really cool. It's a lot of strategy in it, which is dope. And they're bringing it out in parts. So they've only released chapter 1 so far, but there's going to be 4 chapters. And they've kind of alluded to the idea that they're going to be releasing another chapter every month. So there's 4 chapters total, and it ends with the Balrog. Yeah, it's the Mines of Moria, right? So it's a really cool raid idea. It's going to end with the Balrog. And of course, whether Balrog is, Gandalf is sure to follow. So if we check out the personal rewards way down here, once we get a little bit further in the raids, we have more chapters, we're going to start unlocking Gandalf. We're also going to be able to buy him with some of the currency we get from the raid, as well as from the guild rewards once we start getting those in the better chests. So I'm excited to unlock Gandalf. I'm going to be pairing him with my Legolas, Gimli, Fili, and Keely. I'm pretty excited for that, but if we're going to be talking about the personal rewards and the guild rewards, this is what you get as your entire guild attacks the raid. So you get your personal track and your guild track. I like how it separates that in case you're a little bit more hardcore than your guild, or you're a little bit more like casual than your guild, then it's not hurting each other very much. So the guild track is kind of cool in conjunction with the personal track. Again, though, we got to talk about strategy because we got to be able to unlock Gandalf. Now, we don't know the other chapters yet. Like, we don't know chapters 2 through 4, but they're going to be releasing that knowledge soon in the blog, so keep an eye on that. But chapter 1 we know, and I had a lot of fun playing chapter 1. I did have to kind of change my mentality because I went super big on the Isengard team. And Isengard team has a lot of good strengths. They're great single target bursts, so they're great in arena, they're great in challenges, they're great in the campaign. They can turn a 5v5 into a 4v5 before the enemy blinks. And then you have a big advantage because they have sustain like crazy. Every time they hit somebody, they put a debuff on most of their abilities, which activates Ugluk's passive. They get a big heal, and they go from there. This chapter counters that completely. So let's talk about it. In this chapter, the main idea is there's going to be 6 orcs in front of you. One of them is called the Moria Bomber, and he's going to prep himself, and every time you hit him, it increases his chances to drop his bomb instead of throwing it at you, which is huge damage, and it'll hurt his allies. Now, you get a bonus multiplier for killing more than 1 orc at a time, so if we read it here, whenever 2 or more enemy orcs are defeated in a single turn, gain 2,500 points for every orc defeated this way. And then as well, gain 2,500 points for every enemy orc defeated by an enemy Moria Bomber. So if we have the 6 orcs, we weaken the 5 of them, and then we hit that Moria Bomber enough times that he drops it, and he takes out all 6, we get this giant point influx, which I was able to use eventually, but the Isengard team wasn't it. So why didn't the Isengard team work? Well, they're single target, so they couldn't really weaken the other enemy orcs around the Moria Bomber. But also, the Moria Bomber, he comes in, and on his first attack, he does an ability called Don't Rush Me. So he gets a stack of Don't Rush Me, and whenever he takes a hit, he then gains a stack of Don't Rush Me. Sorry, his first ability is Handle with Care, which gives him the first stack of Don't Rush Me. Then, whenever you attack him, he gains a stack of Don't Rush Me. Now, there's a bunch of ways you can get it. Assist will give him 2 stacks. Called in attacks like Ugluk with Mahur will give him 2 stacks, so we can kind of stack that up quickly, and then he'll drop the bomb. The problem with the Isengard team is they didn't do any damage to the surrounding enemies, so I could get him to drop the bomb, but then no one would die, and then because they're a single target team, I was just sort of plucking them away one at a time. I was able to think of the best run to get about 200,000 points, but that wasn't really cutting it, so I had to change my thought. So I subbed in my Rohan team. Now, the Rohan team has so much more going for them as far as spreading out the damage goes. So Strider, AoE opener, Eothane, AoE in his second turn. Counterattacks follow that. Counterattacks from Eowyn as well. Then we had a bunch of assists coming from Eomer, plus he brings in a summon, so now I have a 6th character on the field. So there was a bunch of different ways where I could weaken everybody around the bomber while still giving him stacks. And then he would drop the bomb, and all of a sudden I went in with the first time with my Rohan. It's like, 300,000 points because I'm doing difficulty 2. Great, fantastic, huge. And so you don't even... Okay, well, here's the other thing. I'm kind of a perfectionist, right? So I wanted to one-shot difficulty 2. So I got the 300,000 points using just one team, which let me go in on difficulty 3 with my Isengard team, kind of play around. They obviously didn't do any better on difficulty 3 than they did difficulty 2. But it was nice that I was able to kind of get more than just difficulty 2 points. So I thought that was really fun. Also, I brought in Halbarad instead of Aldred, just because he's bigger. And because Halberd doesn't need to be attacking to get a heal, he just does a heal, right? So the Isengard team is plucking away at the Moria Bomber. He's getting stacks, but he's dodging everything. He's supposed to dodge so you don't kill him, right? You got to build his stacks up. He drops the bomb, you don't want him to die. So because he's doing that, the Isengard team isn't landing debuffs on him, so the sustain they get from the Ugluk passive isn't going. Anyway, it was this whole back and forth, but it was nice that I already had the team ready to go, the Rohan team. So in future chapters, I'm definitely going to have to read ahead, kind of formulate a strategy, look at the teams, decide which team is going to be best for whatever the obstacle in front of me is. And I kind of like that kind of a puzzle to solve. That's me, though. I mean, that's why you play Hero Collector games. They're puzzles, right? Strategy games. But anyway, that's kind of my take on Lord of the Rings so far. I've really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see what the next chapter is going to bring. I hope my Isengard can get in there and mess it up. But yeah, so I would suggest you give the game a try. It is in the infancy right now, so download it using the link in the description below. Give it a shot. Again, level 30 to access the raids, but you're not going to be that far behind. You're going to be able to do difficulty 1, so it's not going to feel bad. You're not just going to go in there and get wiped. And because these raids are giving out so much more rewards, you're going to be able to quickly catch up. So once again, download it using the link in the description below so they know that I sent you. And I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
That's it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Stay happy, healthy, have fun, and I'll see you in the next one.